Sage Wonder coming at you from my van down by the river. So today we are talking about the Second Amendment. There's a massive push from the media, from left-wing politicians, from celebrities, and from anybody under the age of 30 right now to ban or confiscate or, I guess they just want to take them all and melt them down. They're calling for the ban of these AR-15 style rifles, semi-automatic rifles. Several major corporations have announced that they will no longer be selling the rifles to anybody under the age of 21. This makes no statistic sense. I do not believe that people between the ages of 18 and 21 use these rifles or any other semi-automatic rifle for crimes more than the average person of any age. This is definitely age discrimination. There is no law against a person under the age of 21 and over the age of 18 from purchasing long rifles anywhere in the United States. And, except Florida now that has passed the law. But these corporations are using their power to infringe upon the Second Amendment. The First Amendment is under attack as well in the United States, with Google and other organizations like Twitter and Instagram banning certain conservatives and their points of view and their speech. Now, not only is the Second Amendment under attack, but so is the First Amendment when it's combined with the Second Amendment. So apparently you can talk about anything you want on YouTube except for guns nowadays. All of this is a sign of some real severe political bipolarism, some real political division. We are polarized, I guess is what I'm trying to say, on this topic and others. And I think, though, that the group that is against our Constitution is getting more and more cornered, because I think even other Americans that are considered in the center or even left of center are really looking at some of this stuff and going, wait a minute, this isn't our Constitution. Whether you like our Constitution or not is the question now, isn't it? And it's rapidly becoming not about issues, but really about the Constitution. Will the Constitution stand? The First, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, all of these amendments are under attack, and they're being violated. Let's just tell it like it is. The oligarchs, the owners of these enormous tech corporations and all of their little employees are using their power and their monopoly to silence speech in America. These major chains of sporting goods stores are using their financial power to infringe upon the Second Amendment. You can't walk down the street these days and tell your political points of view out in public without fear of being beaten with a bike lock, being spat upon, being called a Nazi simply because you're exercising your First Amendment right. If you exercise your Second Amendment right where it is legal to open carry, you can expect to be harassed by law enforcement, be yelled at, be called names by people driving down the road, walking down the street. This is not the America that I grew up in, not at all. Let me say this, however. If we can just hang on to the First Amendment and the Second Amendment and the Fourth Amendment, if we can just hold our Constitution together for a short while longer, if we can just hold out a little while longer before open warfare starts to happen over these subjects in our country, then we will have all of the anecdotal evidence that we need to protect the First and especially the Second Amendment very soon. We just have to hold out a while longer because some things are happening in the world that are about to prove us right once again. Now, if you watch this channel, you know that I did a video a while back talking about the history of gun control and genocide, how that gun control always leads to genocide. Well, I think we're starting to see some really genuine, clear-cut examples in the world as to why we need a First Amendment and a Second Amendment. There are things happening in the world that are tying the First Amendment of freedom of speech and the right to bear arms together. The right to bear arms protects the freedom of speech. that if you don't have freedom of speech, you can't protect your firearms. If you don't have your firearms, you can't protect your freedom of speech. This is what's been going on clearly and being evidenced, being shown in a very clear way in the world globally right now, in places like South Africa, Sweden, Germany. These places are becoming hellholes. These places are becoming very dangerous for people. And they are missing their Second Amendment because their First Amendment is being taken away. And even the basic human right of your own safety and your own, the right to walk down the street, for a woman's right to walk down the street. Forget about her rights to reproductive rights. A woman, the right to walk down the street and not be raped. That basic right in Germany is being taken away. That these roaming gangs of immigrants in Sweden and Germany and Great Britain are raping women, and the women don't have any way of defending themselves because their Second Amendment, they can't go down and buy a gun. In many of these countries, they can't even go down and buy pepper spray. They can't even go, if they're caught carrying a kitchen knife in their purse, they'll go to prison. They're sitting ducks for these people that come from countries where there are no rules, there are no laws, and women have no rights. That families, white families in South Africa, landowners, are about to be ran off their land by their own government and killed if they don't comply with the theft of their personal property and lands that have been in their families for generations. That this is a perfect example in South Africa of how your own government can become out of their mind, and how that your own safety can be challenged by your own government that is supposed to be there to protect and serve you. So all we have to do here in America is just hang on for a while longer, hold on to our Constitution for a while longer, and let some of these stories play out and become a part of world history. 10 years, if we can hold on 10 years, then we won't have to go clear back to World War II to show an example of gun control leading to a genocidal act, because genocide is about to happen in South Africa. We won't have to go on the anecdotal evidence that a woman is safer if she can arm herself. We'll be able to go straight to Great Britain, straight to Sweden, straight to Germany, and talk to these women who are gang raped and ask them whether they wished they could have had a gun in their purse or not. These places, these women aren't even allowed to have, they're not allowed to have anything to protect themselves. They're sitting ducks. The government's telling them to go out in groups so that you don't get raped. There's safety in numbers. The Constitution of the United States is the most well thought out, planned out, and executed document to ever grace the face of the earth. That our founding fathers thought of everything. When they gave us the right to freedom of speech, they thought about the kinds of situations that these women find themselves in Great Britain and in Germany and in Sweden, where they are being raped. But if they come out and say, I was raped, the government says, shut up, you're being a racist against these immigrants. And if you say it twice and you get a sign and you walk down the street in your rightful freedom of assembly, to say, I was raped, we must put a stop to it, they will come arrest you and put you in jail while your rapist walks free. Really impossible to believe, isn't it? You think I'm making this up. If you're watching mainstream media and you do not have a direct connection into the internet and you're not seeing these videos and these testimonies from around the globe, you probably think I'm lying to you right now. That in places where we used to pay to go to vacation are now unsafe for any woman to walk down the street by herself. That in a place that we deemed as racist in South Africa, where all the white people were essentially keeping black people in economic poverty and being treated as second-class citizens, now those very people that we gave the power to have become the tyrants, and now they are going to systematically exterminate their former enemies, their former oppressors, as it were. that instead of evening the scales, we just put the hatchet in the other hand in South Africa, in the other person's hand. We just disarmed the bad guy and armed what we thought was the good guy, who has now become the bad guy. See, an armed society is a polite society. If everyone has guns, everyone is nice to each other. I came back to Oregon after 30 years in Texas. And having lived in several states, I can tell you that Texas is by far the most polite state you will ever go to, because there are guns everywhere. And to be a jerk and to scream somebody down is risking your life. You know, fences make good neighbors. This is why we need the wall. But if you don't have freedom of speech, you can't even report a crime. So the Second Amendment is there to make sure that you, A, aren't a victim, and B, if you are, you can report it without fear of being victimized again. If we can hold on just a while longer, we'll be able to use Germany and Sweden and South Africa as very poignant and current examples of why our Constitution is so important. And honestly, it's the reason, the United States Constitution is the reason that our country is just plain better than everybody else's. It's the Constitution. The rights of the people shall not be infringed.